We got another big day of news on our hands. The 49ers starting to host more and more of these top 30 visits, giving clues, maybe even smoke screens ahead of the draft. Those of you who have been wanting O-linemen to visit or to be drafted by the 49ers might be happy today. And those of you who've wanted to know Mike Evans' number with the 49ers, since it won't be number 13, might have found out today. This was up on Fanatics today. Mike Evans jersey selling for the apt price of $149, and they've got the number 5 up there. Now, I don't know if he's going to wear the number 5, but this seems to be a hint in that direction. The Trey Lance number. So those of you who bought Trey Lance number 5 jerseys a few years ago, this might be good news for you. You can just change the back of it to Mike Evans. Now, just don't turn into Browns fans who had Tim Couch jerseys and had to go through all of those quarterbacks. It looks like Jeff Garcia, who actually wore the number 5 for the 49ers, is on there. Ken Dorsey with San Francisco as well. That is a long list. Anyway, it might be number 5 indeed for Mike Evans, but we'll wait for confirmation. We should know soon enough. The NFL draft is coming up. 49ers players are actually going to report to the facility next week. It's a voluntary report. It is phase 1 of OTAs. Maybe Mike Evans will be out there. We probably won't get photos of him in a jersey, though, until after the NFL draft. Rookie minicamp comes first, then OTAs in the back half of May, and at that point, we'll have the Mike Evans number confirmed. Now, who's going to be out there as far as rookies go for the 49ers? Because a couple of rookies today, or a couple incoming rookies, posted on Instagram. This actually technically was yesterday. This is from a defensive tackle out of Missouri, Chris McClellan. He then boarded a flight in San Francisco this morning. It looked like he was headed on United to go to the East Coast. He had himself a nice little Polaris seat up front. But McClellan visited San Francisco on Monday. And then there was another visit today, and this one has made more headlines. This one was the offensive tackle Caleb Lomu. This is taken from his Instagram story this afternoon. Utah offensive tackle Caleb Lomu, whom has been mocked to the 49ers a lot. And, you know, whenever Peter Schrager talks, I listen because I think that he's well connected, and he generally has gotten the position that the 49ers will draft correctly in his mock drafts. He has a good finger on the pulse of what the 49ers are looking for generally when it comes to positions in the NFL draft. And at number 27, Peter Schrager's mock draft has the 49ers selecting the offensive tackle out of Utah, Caleb Lomu. The majority of mock drafts, and this is funny because I know that I criticize mock drafts a lot, and I think that they are victims of groupthink often, and maybe this is just one big, massive groupthink incorrectly leading people in the wrong direction. But the majority of mock drafts have the 49ers selecting an offensive lineman in the first round. I actually don't think they're going to be selecting an offensive lineman in the first round. I think they're going to go edge in the first round. I think, too, and there's been some intel coming out today that there's going to be a run on receivers likely in the first round. All of the first round caliber wide receivers, the guys who have visited the 49ers, you've got Denzel Boston, you have Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr. There's a very solid chance that they're going to be gone by pick number 27, which leads us in our strategy discussion of the 49ers in this draft. It leads us to say maybe it's most likely that San Francisco feels the receiver need, which is definitely there, later on in this draft with one of its other 5 picks, assuming there are no trades. And obviously that's a tough assumption to make, but at some point we have to stop with all the conjecture. Maybe they address receiver later, which is why they've been canvassing the receiver market in this top 30 process, not only in the first and second rounds, but also with 4th round prospects where they have 4 picks. And maybe the 49ers are going to save those early picks, or at least the earliest one at number 27, to fortify the trenches. Now, that can mean offensive line or defensive line. I think D-line is more likely, but Caleb Lomu was on a 30 visit to San Francisco today. Now, the reason this is polarizing is because I don't think there really is consensus on how good of a player and how good of a fit Caleb Lomu would be for the 49ers. He is a little light, and he plays a little light at that offensive tackle position. He weighs in at about 310 pounds, 6'5", 6'6", 310 pounds. If you put on the tape of Caleb Lomu, he does get pushed around a little bit, especially on the bull rush. Now, he's above average when it comes to athleticism. And we have seen the 49ers draft an offensive lineman in the past, high up in the first round, who's an above average athlete, but also struggled to firmly anchor against some of those bull rushes. And that was Mike McGlinchey. He didn't make it past his first contract with the 49ers. He wasn't a bad player. He actually ended up being a really good run blocker for San Francisco. But the pass protection throughout, I think, the vast majority of McGlinchey's tenure with the 49ers left something to be desired. At left tackle with Trent Williams right now, you have an all-world player. He still is an all-world player. He's one of the best, if not the best, to ever play the position. He can anchor against the bull rush. He's obviously athletic enough to get out there and do crazy things in run blocking. In replacing Trent Williams, whenever that has to happen over the course of the next few years, the 49ers face an almost inevitable drop-off once the baton is passed. Even right now, you know, it's so funny to me. So many people talk about, well, the 49ers would have more leverage in this ongoing contract discussion with Trent Williams if they had a young tackle on the roster. And to that I say, no, they wouldn't. They had a young tackle on the roster back in 2024 when Trent Williams was arguing for more money, and that his name was Jalen Moore. He ended up making $15 million annually from the Kansas City Chiefs. Having Jalen Moore on the roster did not help the 49ers whatsoever when it came to leverage with Trent Williams. Leverage is derived by a player when whatever he can bring to the table is unique. It's singular to the situation. No matter whom the 49ers could realistically put on the roster right now, they're not going to have leverage over Trent Williams. He's Trent. He's playing top 2, top 3 level football. He's a massive part of a veteran team, a veteran component himself, of an outfit that's looking to win a Super Bowl now. It's got a lot of players who are getting a little longer in the tooth, and there's a urgency. There's a rush in Santa Clara for the 49ers to make it happen with Christian McCaffrey, to make it happen with Fred Warner, with George Kittle, with Brock Purdy. Even though he's younger, they've got their franchise quarterback under contract, and Trent Williams is a big, big part of that operation. There is nobody that is realistically attainable right now for the 49ers that would prevent a drop-off from the level of play that Trent Williams is delivering at left tackle. So if you do, now like applying this to Caleb Lomu, if you do draft Caleb Lomu, I think that it would be a future forward play, right? You'd be facing 2027, 2028. You would say, okay, this guy does not have the strongest anchor. This guy probably needs to see the insides of an NFL weight room over the course of at least the next year, and you'd be preparing him for 2027 and beyond. And I'm not sure how well that would jive with the one-year focus that the 49ers have put into some of their free agent signings. I almost think that it is more likely, despite the fact that Caleb Lomu has been mock drafted to the 49ers so many times, and by so many of these analysts, Peter Schrager has done it, and obviously the general public has done it quite a bit. That's how we get those consensus mock draft numbers. But I think it's more likely if the 49ers use a very valuable pick, number 27 or number 58 on an offensive lineman, I think they might actually zero in on guard, because you can plug and play at that left guard position. I don't see the 49ers plugging and playing with somebody like Caleb Lomu at left tackle and having a lot of success, just given the fact that we talk about the strength needing to improve. We talk about some real NFL development against power needing to happen. I will say this too. The 49ers have sent out smoke screens in the past regarding the NFL draft, and often Not all the time, but often the player that they've selected in the first round has not even taken a 30 visit to the team. In the case of Mike McGlinchey in 2018, Mike hardly ever visited with the 49ers. I think he had a rush interview in one of the 15-minute sessions at the NFL Combine, but that was it. 49ers didn't reach out after that until they called him in late April, letting Mike McGlinchey know that he was going to be their pick at number 9 overall. It is very possible that the 49ers send out signals here that, okay, Caleb Lomu might be somebody we're interested in. There could even be a little bit of chatter that puts him into mock drafts around the country, especially some experts' mock drafts. And the 49ers are prepared to go an entirely different direction, but they want to conceal what they're actually going to do because 26 teams are scheduled to pick ahead of them. So I'm sitting here and I'm trying to use logic, right, when I appraise what the 49ers might do at pick number 27. And I see a defensive line room that needs a whole heck of a lot more in terms of numbers. They are low in that room when it comes to available healthy players right now. I see a defensive end class that drops off significantly after the first couple rounds of this draft. I see a contract negotiation with Trent Williams that's trending in the right direction. And I see Trent Williams being an irreplaceable player for the hopes of the 2026 49ers. That might change by 2027, which is why they're haggling over exactly how much money to guarantee beyond this year. But I think that it's very clear that in the short term, Trent Williams gives the 49ers the best chance to win at left tackle. I see a team that's invested in some older players for this 2026 season, in Mike Evans, in Christian Kirk. On the defensive side, in Dre Greenlaw. I see a team trying to circle the wagons to push forward after a 13-win season to take it the next step here in 2026. And when I look at all that, I think that, well, the 49ers must be in more of a plug-and-play mode right now, where they want to satisfy two things. They want to take care of the future, but they also want to make themselves better in 2027. And your best chance at making or in 2026, and the best chance at making the team better in the short term is going to lie with your most valuable draft pick, which is the number 27 overall pick right now. And it seems to me that Caleb Lomu would have a tough time filling those criteria, unless I'm missing something about his play strength when I watch the tape. So plug and play left guard. Maybe that can happen in round 2. We've talked about Jennings Dunker, the guy with a mullet out of Iowa, Connor Colby's former teammate. Speaking of Connor Colby, he made a cameo today with the Caleb Lomu post. So Lomu's in the 49ers weight room. We zoom in and we could see that is Connor Colby himself, the teammate, former teammate of Jennings Dunker in Iowa. Colby in San Francisco's weight room. So that was the post. Look at that. They've got the branded weights, the dumbbells here. That's cool. 49ers throwing up some iron here over the course of the offseason. Anyway, Jennings Dunker was once Connor Colby's teammate. Maybe he will be again. I think you need more along the defensive line. I think, yes, they've even said that they're going to target that left guard position. Joel Bitonio spoke for the first time on record since this offseason started, and he went to the University of Nevada up in Reno, and he was back there for an event, and he spoke to a reporter there and essentially said that he's undecided about whether or not he's going to continue playing, but he obviously didn't rule out continuing to play for his 13th season. And he said that he probably was going to make a decision after the NFL draft. At least that's what he inferred. I put Bitonio and Joey Bosa in similar boats now because they both remain free agents. If the 49ers do not adequately draft enough talent at their respective positions, and it's hard to tell what the 49ers are going to do. Even they don't know how the draft is going to break. Those are guys they can have on speed dial to potentially fill, in Bitonio's case, left guard, and in Joey Bosa's case, defensive end. The price right now has not matched for the 49ers and Joey Bosa. And I think for Joel Bitonio, the willingness to play right now has not matched the 49ers. He's unsure if he's going to retire or not moving forward. But that willingness and of Bitonio and the price of Joey Bosa, those things can all change because of an evolving landscape, and the next tectonic shift can happen at the NFL draft. It just depends on how this all breaks. I think in all likelihood, because multiple bodies are needed for the 49ers along the defensive line, they look in that direction at number 27. Maybe they do look to the offensive line, but maybe it's a guard earlier on. Who knows? But maybe guard in round 2. And this is a tentative plan, and this is one of many simulations for the 49ers, right? You can't marry yourself to one course of action because the draft can force you to go in a different way. If they don't have a third-round pick, then they have 4 fourth-round picks. And thankfully for them, I think the meat of talent in this draft is right there, is in the middle. It's not a very good draft. Once you get to the later rounds, it's not particularly deep, and it's not particularly star power heavy. So I don't think that this is the year, I think, where you're not as torn up about not having a pick near the very top. I think that the draft, if the 49ers are able to make hay, that the hay is going to be made somewhere between picks number 20 and pick number 160. And the 49ers feel that they've got all of their selections in that range of this NFL draft, and they're going to have to be comfortable with it because that's going to be the next step in building this football team. I'm going to open this up to some questions, whether you want to talk about Mike Evans' number. It might be number 5. This is what we saw up on Fanatics today. Or if you want to talk about the visits, well, we've got 2 more visits in the books for the 49ers. Obviously today it was the offensive lineman out of Utah, Caleb Lomu. But if I head over into the comments section, I'm sure I could answer some very good questions. Post them. That's what Mike says. Post all of your questions. And, there's always the chance that the 49ers shock the world and go something like safety in the first round. I mean, you saw the Seattle Seahawks last year with Nick Emanwuri pick a guy who helped transform their defense because of his versatility. And the 49ers, I mean, Upton Stout has helped take this defense and start to turn it around for San Francisco because of his versatility. But the impact that Nick Emanwuri as an adaptable defensive back had for the Seattle Seahawks last year, I think showcases a particular direction that football is heading in. Positionless skill positions on offense countered by positionless coverage positions on defense. You can't rule out the 49ers going after a safety. I don't think, though, this comment right here, which is being very specific with everything that happens in the 4th round, just don't marry yourself to one course of action because your entire plan can blow up over the course of the first 26 picks. And you're not going to just pick a position to pick a position when you're on the clock. A great example of this is last year. If we want to talk about an offensive tackle, I think the 49ers were very, very interested in drafting a tackle. There was a guy named Charles Grant, and there was a guy named Caleb Rogers, both tackles. And the 49ers had a pick at, what was it, number 99 or number 100? I think they were number 100. That's where Upton Stout ended up going. The 2 picks in front of the 49ers were both belonging to the Las Vegas Raiders. And the 49ers figured, well, the Raiders, there's no way that the Raiders are going to pick 2 offensive tackles in a row. The 49ers said, we like both of these guys, and at least one of these guys is going to be available because there's no way that the Raiders pick out 2 offensive tackles in a row. Lo and behold, the Raiders ended up picking 2 offensive tackles in a row. They picked both Grant and Rogers, both off the board. And then the 49ers sat there at 100, and they're like, well, we can reach for an offensive tackle who we don't really like. We wanted to take one of these guys as the developmental offensive lineman, or we can actually pick a player whom we love. So they went with, you got a dog, coach. They went with Upton Stout, and it ended up being a smart pick. Maybe it was bad luck. Maybe it ended up being roundabout good luck for the 49ers. Maybe neither of those 2 offensive linemen would have fit or contributed to San Francisco, and they already have a defensive starter with that pick at number 100. But the moral of the story is that the 49ers might have really been heading into that pick, which ended up yielding Upton Stout. They really might have been heading into that pick trying to get an offensive tackle to develop. They didn't get that offensive tackle, and because they pivoted off of it, they ended up reaping some rewards over the course of the 2025 season. Similar stuff can happen in this NFL draft, and I guarantee that it will happen. You don't know what's going to happen over the first 26 picks. That's why we look at these mock drafts for entertainment value, and we look at them to judge a vibe, but the 49ers could be broadcasting a vibe that throws people off the scent. Maybe that they're confident that Trent Williams is going to play another 3 years for them, and everything's going to be buttoned up, and he's going to continue to play at an extremely high level. And they're saying, as long as Trent wants to play, we're not going to leverage him out of this building because he's so good. We'd rather fix that left guard position. We'd rather refortify the defensive line, which obviously has been, I think, damaged talent-wise over the years, mainly due to the trade up for Trey Lance in 2021. They stopped stockpiling defensive line talent at the top of the draft because they didn't have the draft capital to do that. I think it's very plausible to think that the 49ers see those two areas as bigger immediate needs that can also turn into efficient picks for the short term and the long term. And they just wait on the tackle position because, they've got extremely high standards when it comes to the physical characteristics that tackles need to have. And that's why when the 49ers pick, they've won more often than not. So they have a draft pick that is typically a little bit lower in that first round. Typically the tackles who fit the physical characteristics that they want for their system, which needs to be a really rare combination of size and speed, those guys aren't available anymore. And, when they replaced Joe Staley in 2020, it wasn't with a draft pick, although I do think that the one pick, first round pick, the 49ers really, really wish they could have had back is passing on Tristan Wirfs. I think that could have set them up at that tackle position. But anyway, they went with Kinlaw instead of Tristan Wirfs. The 49ers, you look at, how do we put this? You look at the draft history of San Francisco, and they, we have a graphic to put up here, and it's a good one today. I'm going to get this up. I think Mike sent me something. Oh my God. Mike has got a lot of messages for me to catch up on, but I have to show you this graphic. It's from SF Data Niners. He's got some, you got a list of virtual interviews and stuff here, Mike. This is good. We're going to get to this in a little bit. It's hard for me to keep up with all that Mike is sending, but I saved this on X a little bit earlier. And this is the one overarching strategy look and piece of recommendation that I would have for the 49ers in this draft. And in any draft, really, moving forward. And we've talked about this some over the years, but SF Data Niners does such a good job of building out the data. Take a look at this. So I'm going to start with this one. This right here is the big board versus what the 49ers have done. And if the 49ers were right in the middle, if they're average, then, there would be nothing really to glean from this data. But they're not. They're right here at the very bottom. Well, what are the 49ers doing? They're drafting players on average who are ranked lower than by consensus than the spot where the 49ers are drafting, right? So if you want that in plain English, they're reaching versus the consensus board. The Steelers have typically drafted players ahead of it, as you can see here, they've drafted players where the consensus more closely matches where the pick has actually happened, and the 49ers have drafted these players much earlier than what the public or the general consensus of mock drafts has thought of them. So then you say, okay, well, it's fine if the 49ers reach, but only fine if the players that they reach for have actually performed well. Well, how's their track record on that front? We can actually look. Here are the 49ers' top 20 reaches by the difference in value from 2017 to 2025. This is the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era. Top reach was a punter, Mitch Wishnowsky, in the 4th round. We've talked about a punter a little bit earlier today, and he projects as a 7th-round pick or an undrafted free agent. I think spending a 4th-round pick on a punter would qualify as a reach. They reached for Ty Davis-Price in round 3, the running back, 2022. That didn't work out for the 49ers. They reached for Joe Williams in 2017, 4th-round pick. That didn't work out for the 49ers. They reached for Sam Womack in 2025, 5th-round pick. I would say that one worked out a bit better, but they still had to waive him because they didn't quite have room on the roster. So he didn't turn into a particularly productive player for the 49ers, although he was productive elsewhere. Obviously, they reached for Trey Lance. That didn't work out for the 49ers. CJ Beathard, now, this is it's funny because the one salvaging piece of this entire chart of reaches for San Francisco probably lies in Beathard. Why is that? Well, Beathard was a 3rd-round pick. Obviously didn't see a whole lot of success on the field for the 49ers. Was picked way ahead of his big board ranking of 240. So the big board consensus was 240. He was picked at number 104. But CJ Beathard, when he left the 49ers after the 2020 season, helped net the 49ers a comp pick. And that comp pick ended up being number 262 in 2022. So CJ Beathard walked so that Brock Purdy could run. So even though it was a reach for CJ Beathard, even though he didn't do all too much on the field positively for the 49ers, he quite literally created the compensatory pick that got the 49ers Brock Purdy. Crazy how that works, right? Nick Martin, that's an obvious TBD. Aaron Banks was a starter for this team for 3 years, and that was a reach in the 2nd round versus the big board. But Aaron did not earn a 2nd contract with the 49ers. The Packers ended up paying him $19 million a year, and I think that most agree that was an overpay. Jake Moody, yes, reach, didn't work out for the 49ers in the 3rd round. Marcel Harris also didn't work out for the 49ers, although that was a 6th-round pick. It wasn't as valuable of capital, but, I mean, his big board ranking was much, much worse than where he actually went in the 6th. Jordan Watkins, TBD. Jalen Hurd, it could have been much better, but the injuries ended up getting Jalen Hurd. Justin School, he's still in the league right now. He just signed with another team. I forgot where it was, but he played some valuable tackle reps with the 49ers, but was never a truly plus contributor. It was a 6th-round pick for a tackle. Cameron Latu, that didn't work out, 3rd-round pick. Upton Stout, technically considered a reach. Now, not as big of a reach. He's already further down the list here, and that looks like it's going to pay off for the 49ers, but the hit rate here is not great for San Francisco. Dante Pettis obviously didn't work out. Charlie Warner, that did work out, but it was a smaller reach, 6th round. I mean, he was the big board position here was off of the draft. They used the 6th-round pick on him. That he was a good blocker for the 49ers for those 4 years. Renardo Green, smaller reach. Ricky Pearsall, smaller reach. Marquise Siegel, smaller reach. Hard to be upset about those, especially since the jury is still out on all 3 of those players and might even be trending in a really positive direction for Renardo Green and Ricky Pearsall, but we shall see. Bottom line is you look at this, and I think if you're looking at 49ers draft strategy, I think it might be extremely smart for San Francisco moving forward to not take massive swings away from the consensus. Probably, and, you know, as of late, it looks like they're taking we don't see many recent picks way up here as massive reaches and then failures. Nick Martin was the only one. The other ones are here much closer to the mean. I think that the 49ers have gone much more R&D focused with how they draft over the past 2 cycles. And I think that's brought them in closer to the league mean. As you can see, this is where the drafting against the board lies on the aggregate. I think that it would benefit the 49ers to move closer, further to the left here. So they're near this middle average line. You can see the red line that is bisecting this entire graphic vertically. And the closer the 49ers can move to the left, the better, I think, the likelihood of their success will be, just because the draft is a crapshoot to begin with. And I think the only way that it's been shown that you can at least partially defeat the crapshoot nature of the NFL draft is if you find a hard data process, typically R&D based, right? That takes human error and takes human subjectivity out of the equation as much as possible. And that's why you've got your analysts. That's why you've got the guys measuring different things that are shown to correlate with NFL success. That's how you block and get past the human bias, the cloud of judgment that I think might have hurt the 49ers with so many of these picks right here. They've obviously hit on enough players to field a really, really good roster. I mean, it's impossible to deny that. And I know a lot of people try to deny that. You can't, but they also have missed on a handful that seem to have come because of reaches in the NFL draft. And that's very well illustrated here. SF Data Niners, go check out all of his work. He does an excellent job really quantifying all of this for us to have nice visuals. Mike points out that the reaches might have been due to the coaches reaching. Coaches having some emotional input, less R&D oriented input on how the 49ers are picking. That's very possible. We don't know. We don't know exactly how the 49ers are making the meal behind the scenes. But we do know that John Lynch has hinted that since 2024 that R&D has become a bigger part of how the 49ers do things. And I don't think that it's a surprise that 2024 and 2025, two big draft classes right out of the gate, are looking significantly stronger than the seasons before. Now, another thing that clouds the analysis here is that they traded away those first-round picks for Trey Lance, and obviously the trade didn't work out. That trade is obviously not a normal trade. That was something that the 49ers did in a vacuum because of the salary cap situation and their desire to try to take a big swing at quarterback and keep the roster cap sustainable. Regardless of why they did that trade, it burned a lot of first-round draft capital that made evaluating 2021, 2022, and 2023, all of those drafts, all the more difficult. They didn't have a full cupboard again until 2024. And that's when they were looking back at some tough draft classes in 22 and 23 without Brock Purdy. Those would be some really, really bad hauls. That's when the 49ers looked back and said, I think we need to get R&D more involved. That's how I read this situation from the outside. And I think with a more involved R&D, if that continues for the third straight year, as I expect it to continue, you will see this move further to the left. The 49ers will not reach as often. And then if you're the 49ers, you would hope that you would have a much more successful list of players when you did reach, and hopefully you're reaching again less. So you would have lighter yellow in a chart like this. I'm sure SF Data Niners will do a good job continuing to track this as time progresses. All right, anyway, Caleb Lomu visiting Levi's Stadium today. Top 30 visits continue. I think that, if I had to prognosticate this right now, I think the 49ers much more likely to go defensive line, maybe even offensive guard early on. The whole Trent Williams thing, he's impossible to replace. And as long as you get that contractual situation ironed out and he's on the field and you've got the leverage of having him under contract if you're the 49ers, as long as he's in place, that's your best option at left tackle. And doing anything else, like trying to develop a guy behind the scenes, you're getting a little too cute in a season where you haven't been cute at all this offseason. You've gotten players who can help you now in Mike Evans and Christian Kirk and Dre Greenlaw. I mean, we can go down the list. I think the 49ers should be intent on getting players who can help now. Not so sure that there is a particular fit there for Caleb Lomu, assuming that Trent Williams is on this football team. According to and we could finish up this show the way that we started it. There's a NFL jersey numbers Twitter page, X page. They're saying that Christian Kirk is going to wear number 3 for San Francisco. So apparently, according to Fanatics, unless this is just hype, unless this is not true, Evans number 5, maybe Christian Kirk in at number 3. What do we know, though? We're just prognosticating right there. Mike Evans wearing number 5, which was, again, last assigned to Demarcus Robinson, who's still on the team, by the way. So there's that whole wrinkle that you've got to keep in mind. But Kirk 3, Evans 5 for now. Those are predictions. Don't go out and buy a custom-made jersey and blame me if those are wrong. I'm just trying to give you guys a heads up. I'm just trying to help you out. I'm trying to share all the 49ers news. Hit that subscribe button. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you very, very soon.